Hey there, welcome back. Grab your favorite cup of coffee or tea because today we're diving into one of my favorite topics, the power of definite purpose. Let me kick things off with a story that blew my mind the first time I heard it. Picture this, a young girl, no older than 17, who despite having zero military training, led an army to victory. I'm talking about Joan of Arc. Now, Joan was guided by a deep, unshakable conviction that she was destined to save France. How incredible is that? Joan wasn't just following whimsy. She had a crystal clear mission that drove her every action. And that leads me to our core message today. When you have a definite purpose, something magical happens. You attract the resources, the people, and the energy you need to make your vision a reality. Let's dive deeper into that. Think about Alexander the Great for a moment. As a child, his mother told him stories that convinced him he was meant to conquer the world. Imagine growing up with that narrative. He trained not just physically, but mentally. His mind was set on a singular course to expand his empire. It's like his whole being resonated with that purpose. And guess what? By the time he was 30, he'd built one of the largest empires the world had ever seen. He was not just a warrior, he was a man with a mission. And then there's Nikola Tesla. Now, Tesla was a dreamer in the purest sense of the word. He possessed this unique ability to visualize complex machinery in his mind before ever putting pen to paper, let alone building a prototype. Tesla's clear mental images were so vivid, they guided his entire process. It was as if his mind had already done the heavy lifting, and his hands simply followed through. All right, let's leap to the modern day with someone like Tony Robbins. Here's a guy who at one point was broke and overweight, living in a small, cramped apartment. But he didn't let his circumstances dictate his future. Instead, he rewrote his narrative by adopting a new purpose and shifting his beliefs. He visualized a life of abundance and health, setting a clear intent to help others transform their lives. And today, he's a global symbol of self-improvement and empowerment. So what do all these stories have in common? It's the definitive purpose. When you have a goal that ignites your passion, it directs your focus like a laser. This isn't just motivational fluff. There's real psychology behind it. Our brains are wired to focus on what we deem important. When your purpose is clear, your brain works overtime to align your realities with your vision. Now, let's make this super relevant to you today. Whether you're striving for financial success, better health, or more meaningful relationships, identifying and committing to a definitive purpose can change everything. It's like setting your internal GPS. Instead of wandering aimlessly, you have a destination, and every decision becomes a step toward that goal. Think of your purpose as the North Star in a sometimes chaotic world. It keeps you steady even when things get challenging. The journey won't always be smooth, but having that guiding light makes all the difference. And remember, finding your purpose isn't about having everything figured out right now. It's about asking yourself what truly matters to you and then letting that guide your actions. So, as we wrap up, I challenge you, take some time today, maybe during a quiet moment, to reflect, what is it that you really want? What kind of life do you envision for yourself? This exercise isn't just hypothetical, it's a powerful step towards transforming your reality. Thanks for listening today. I hope these stories of purpose have inspired you as much as they inspire me. Remember, a definite purpose is the launching pad for attracting wealth, health, and power into your life. Until next time, keep dreaming big and chasing those dreams. Let me tell you a story about a woman who had every reason to give up but never did. Picture this. It's the 1800s, and a young Harriet Tubman is living in the shadow of slavery. She could have succumbed to the overwhelming circumstances around her, but instead she turned inward, trusting her inner visions and what she believed were divine signs. Those signals, those internal whispers, they guided her through perilous journeys to lead countless slaves to freedom. It's as if she turned her fear into faith, her trials into triumph. Have you ever felt that little voice urging you on? How often do we ignore it? Now, isn't it fascinating how Harriet didn't just survive her failures, but used them as stepping stones for liberation? She wasn't just escaping, she was paving a path for others. That brings me to another powerhouse, a modern-day maestro of transformation, Tony Robbins. Now, Tony wasn't always the successful catalyst for change we know today. I've heard Tony's story about when he hit rock bottom, broke, overweight, and stuck in a spiral of limiting beliefs. But just like Harriet, he looked inward and began rewriting those narratives, transforming his failure into a series of stepping stones. So, how did Tony do it? How did he go from struggling to making such a massive impact? Well, he started by changing his beliefs. Beliefs are like the eyes we use to interpret our reality. If you believe you're destined to fail, every setback reinforces that story. But Tony flipped the script. He began with a tiny, almost imperceptible shift in perspective. Every morning, he asked himself empowering questions, questions that opened doors to new possibilities rather than closing them. Imagine what we could achieve if we all questioned our own limiting beliefs this way. And you know, it's not just individuals. History itself is replete with examples. Alexander the Great, for instance, was conditioned from a young age to believe he was destined to conquer the world. His tutor, none other than Aristotle, instilled in him the philosophy and critical thinking that prepared him mentally for the trials of leadership. Alexander's belief wasn't just about personal glory. It became a mindset that mobilized armies and inspired loyalty. Can you see the thread here? Whether it's Alexander or Tony or even Harriet, they each used failure as a feedback loop to refine their strategies. But here's the thing, it's not about avoiding failure. It's about transforming it into an ally. Failure isn't the end. It's merely a teacher. I mean, take Beyoncé. She's someone who embodies this principle in a way that's both modern and deeply inspiring. She created an alter ego, Sasha Fierce, to confront her fears head-on. Whenever she stepped onto the stage, she was no longer just Beyoncé. She was someone who could overcome anything. This was her way of channeling any anxiety or self-doubt into performance energy. Ever thought about what your alter ego might look like? The psychology behind these transformations, it's riveting. It's about understanding that the mind is a powerful tool when trained properly. These individuals didn't just stumble onto success, they actively molded their destinies. It's a form of mental alchemy, converting every negative into a positive force, every no into a new direction. What we can take away from these stories is that our failures are not our identities. They are merely episodes in our larger narrative. So what does this mean for you, dear friend, listening right now? It means that each setback you encounter is a setup for your next leap forward. Today, maybe you start by asking yourself, what belief can I change today? What failure can I learn from? Remember, every successful person you admire has a chapter in their book titled Failure. And that chapter isn't the end, it's the beginning of the most exciting plot twist yet. In the end, the key principle here is that success is not a linear journey. It's a series of rises and falls, of learning and unlearning. But with each turn, you gather wisdom, you build resilience, and you prepare for the next opportunity that comes your way. So next time you face a setback, ask yourself, what story am I writing with this moment? Because ultimately, it's your story, and only you hold the pen. Let's start with a pretty vivid image. Imagine Will Smith, long before he was the globally recognized star we know today, standing in front of his mirror each morning, affirming his greatness. He'd look himself in the eye and say, I am a force of greatness. I am destined to do extraordinary things. Now, this might sound almost like a movie scene, but it wasn't. It was a daily ritual. Will believed in the power of these affirmations, and he saw them as part of his constant collaboration with his future self. Continually affirming his potential, he was essentially part of a one-man mastermind group, connecting with his own aspirations, visualizing his success until it became an undeniable part of his reality. You see, what Will was doing is closely tied to the mastermind principle. It's about bringing together minds, whether they're different people or facets of yourself, to work towards a common goal. The power in this collaboration is immense. Historically, we've seen genius come from these kinds of synergies. Take, for example, Søren Kierkegaard, the renowned philosopher. He would wander the streets of Copenhagen, contemplating life's deepest questions. As he walked, he wasn't alone. His thoughts were sparring partners, each one challenging and refining the other, a mental mastermind group in perpetual dialogue. But here's where it gets interesting. When we think about a mastermind, we often imagine boardrooms filled with people or groups meeting over coffee. But it's not just about that. Kierkegaard's walks were a one-person mastermind in action. He engaged with his thoughts, challenged them, allowing new ideas to emerge. This kind of internal collaboration is as powerful as any committee of great minds convened in a room. It's about creating a space where ideas can clash, merge, and evolve into something greater. Now, fast forward to a more modern example. Beyoncé. She crafted an entire alter ego, Sasha Fierce, to perform without fear. It's fascinating because in creating Sasha, Beyoncé was essentially forming a personal mastermind with this fearless part of herself. She stepped into this persona to access energy and courage that perhaps didn't come naturally to her every day. By collaborating internally with Sasha, she could perform at her absolute peak. This isn't just an act of creative genius, but a testament to how the mastermind principle can manifest even within an individual. So what connects all these examples? Will Smith, Søren Kierkegaard, Beyoncé? It's the understanding that the mind can be a powerful think tank, and when you harness that, there's virtually nothing you can't achieve. Whether it's a collaboration with others or a deep internal dialogue, it's about creating an environment where ideas can thrive. It nurtures creativity, breeds innovation, and ultimately propels you towards your goals. Now, the psychology behind the mastermind approach is rooted in the belief in shared strength. Imagine Harriet Tubman, who trusted her divine visions and inner guidance while leading slaves to freedom. She wasn't just relying on her own courage, but tapping into a collective dream of liberation. She became part of a spiritual mastermind, trusting the visions that guided her path and holding on to the hope shared by everyone she led. This blend of collaboration with both the physical and metaphysical is what made her leadership unshakable. In today's world, the same principles apply. You might connect with colleagues, mentors, or even tap into online networks to create your mastermind. With technology, we have unprecedented access to the minds of others, no matter where they are. But remember, it can also be an internal process. Journaling, meditation, or simply reflecting during a walk can unlock hidden potential. It's about finding ways to engage in that mental alchemy that turns ideas into reality. So as you go about your day, think about how you can utilize the mastermind principle in your life. Ask yourself, who can I collaborate with, or what part of my own mind can I engage to take my goals to the next level? Because in the end, the strength you gain from a mastermind, whether internal or external, can be the very key to unlocking the door to your dreams. And that's something truly worth contemplating. Let me take you on a little journey back in time and space to a dusty library corner in 4th century Macedonia. Picture a young boy named Alexander, not yet the Great, furiously flipping through scrolls, his eyes alight with ambition and dreams far beyond his little corner of the world. See, here's the thing. Alexander wasn't just reading for knowledge. He was training his mind, shaping a belief so ironclad that anyone who knew him would tell you he was destined to conquer the world. I mean, can you imagine having such conviction? From such a young age, he was instilling in himself a relentless belief that he was meant for greatness. But let's travel from the world of ancient kings to the secretive, moonlit paths of the Underground Railroad. Here's where we find Harriet Tubman, a woman so tuned into her own visions and divine signs that she navigated treacherous routes to lead countless slaves to freedom. Harriet's persistence wasn't just physical, it was deeply spiritual and psychological too. Imagine the courage it took to trust these visions, to follow them when every sign around her screamed danger. Yet her inner resolve was unshakable. This is the kind of perseverance that bends the arc of history. Now fast forward a bit to a more modern era, where a young Irish fighter named Conor McGregor is making waves. Before he was a household name, McGregor was predicting his victories with startling accuracy. Picture him at press conferences, brimming with self-assuredness, detailing exactly how and when he would knock out his opponents. This wasn't just bravado. It was a testament to the power of his belief and focus. What McGregor was doing was training not just his body, but his mind to attract success, almost as if it were inevitable. And speaking of belief, let's talk about someone from the world of music. There's Lady Gaga. Before the fame, the awards, the sold-out stadiums, imagine this. She used to write herself little notes, notes of gratitude, notes filled with affirmations about her dreams, about her future. When the industry doors didn't open, her belief in herself never wavered. She was persistent in her practice of gratitude and self-belief, even when there was little external validation. So what's really going on here? Why do these stories matter? Well, this is where we dive into the psychology behind it all. The common thread is a deep, unwavering belief in oneself and the willingness to persist through adversity. It's about training the mind to see the unseen, to believe the unbelievable. Alexander, Harriet, Connor, and Gaga, they didn't just walk down a path. They carved their path by relentlessly pursuing their dreams regardless of the obstacles. And what about us? What can we learn from their tenacity? In today's world, we're constantly bombarded with quick fixes and instant results. The truth is, real success, the kind that truly transforms your life, requires a deep and persistent belief in yourself. It's about developing that mental resilience to keep pushing, to keep believing, even when the going gets tough. So ask yourself, how are you training your mind? What beliefs are you nurturing every day? Think of it as a mental workout. Just like you'd train your muscles to lift heavier weights, you train your mind to handle bigger challenges. So next time you're faced with doubt or difficulty, remember the likes of Alexander, Harriet, Connor, and Lady Gaga. Remember their stories, let them inspire you to persist, to believe. Because in the end, persistence through adversity is not just a principle, it's a way of living that leads to unprecedented success. Imagine for a moment standing in the dark vastness of the cosmos, peering through a telescope for the first time. That's exactly what Galileo Galilei did. Picture it. The year is 1610, and Galileo's pointing his lens at the sky, seeing moons orbiting Jupiter, something that defied the religious dogma of his time. But here's where it gets interesting. Galileo didn't just see moons, he saw a new reality. He believed what he saw even when society refused to accept it. His faith in his observations, despite overwhelming opposition, is what propelled him to change the course of science forever. Now let's fast forward a few centuries to Matthew McConaughey journaling about a change in his career. You know McConaughey, right? The guy who went from rom-com heartthrob to Oscar-winning actor? Before the shift, he was writing down his vision for a more serious career. He saw it, believed it, and acted as if it were already happening. This journaling wasn't just scribbling thoughts. No, it was an exercise in shaping his reality through belief. And look how that turned out. So what's going on here? It's the psychology of belief, folks. These stories are about more than just ambition. They're about a mindset, a belief system that changes outcomes. It's like Alexander the Great, who was said to have believed from a young age that he was destined to conquer. Imagine being trained to believe you're a world conqueror before you've even reached adulthood. But that's the power of belief. It molds our reality. But here's the thing. This isn't reserved for the Galileos or the McConaugheys. It's for anyone willing to embrace it. So why does belief have such power? It's because our beliefs guide our actions, and our actions build our reality. If you think about it, every action we take is rooted in some form of belief. Whether it's faith in ourselves or trust in the process, it's belief that motivates us to move forward. Let me tell you, Joan of Arc's story is another epic example. Imagine a teenage girl with no military training rallying an army, leading them to victory. How? Through sheer conviction. Joan believed she was guided by divine voices, and while others saw a mere peasant, she saw a leader. Her belief didn't just change her fate, it altered the course of history for France. So how do we harness this power of belief in our own lives today? Well, first, it's about awareness. Recognize the beliefs you hold about yourself and the world. Are they empowering or are they holding you back? Let me ask you, when was the last time you truly believed in something improbable? And how did it change your actions? Think about Henry Ford, who famously said, "Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right." This isn't just a catchy phrase, it's a profound truth about the psychology of belief. Ford's unwavering belief in his vision brought the automobile to the masses. His faith in what was possible, even when others doubted, was the engine driving his success. In today's world, belief can be just as transformative. It's about creating a vision of who you want to become and seeing it as achievable. Look, in a society filled with noise and naysayers, how often do we question our dreams because we compare them to past failures? Instead, let's learn from these great stories and train our minds to focus on what's truly possible. So let's bring this home. What can you do today to start shaping your belief system? Start by envisioning your goals with clarity. Write them down like McConaughey did. Reflect on them daily. Surround yourself with people who believe in you and what you're aiming to achieve. Become aware of the negative beliefs that creep in and challenge them. Remember, belief is more than just wishful thinking. It's the starting point of all achievement. Like Galileo peering into the heavens or Joan of Arc leading her troops, your belief can be the lens that brings a new reality into focus. So let's make today the day we start believing in the extraordinary possibilities within each of us. So imagine this, you're Galileo, the guy who looked up at the night sky and saw something completely different from what everyone else believed at the time. Now, Galileo wasn't just stargazing for fun. He found evidence that our planet wasn't the center of the universe. He faced a mountain of criticism from the establishment because his findings challenged the status quo. But instead of retreating, Galileo leaned into his discoveries because he trusted the reality he saw. Let me ask you, can you imagine the conviction it takes to stand by your insights when everyone around you is saying you're wrong? Here's the thing about Galileo. We often overlook the fact that he didn't just wake up one day and make these groundbreaking observations. It was years of dedicated study, constantly refining his telescopes and learning from every bit of criticism. He understood that setbacks were part of the process of discovery. This is something we can all take to heart. Facing criticism and setbacks isn't about proving others wrong. It's about being true to what you know deep down and growing from those challenges. Now, fast forward a few centuries to someone like Tom Bilyeu, the co-founder of Quest Nutrition. Here's a guy who was always fascinated by the power of the mind. He didn't just create a multi-million-dollar company. He was obsessed with understanding how our mindset shapes our reality. Tom studied neuroplasticity extensively, which ironically he did to overcome his own limitations. Like Galileo, Bilyeu was ahead of his time, seeing possibilities in every setback. And let me tell you, his journey was anything but smooth. His story is a modern take on how embracing criticism can actually fuel your growth. Tom Bilyeu once talked about how he would deliberately seek out criticism. You see, he understood that feedback, even the harshest kind, was invaluable. I mean, it's easy to nod along to people who agree with us, right? But Tom knew that in order to innovate, he had to be willing to listen to those who saw the flaws. His willingness to embrace criticism was one of the key elements that allowed Quest to become a billion-dollar company. So how did he handle it? By viewing criticism as a treasure map to improvement. And speaking of incredible transformations, Joe Dispenza's story is another gem. Here's a guy who was told he wouldn't walk again after a severe accident. But instead of accepting that grim prognosis, Joe used his mind to heal his body. Through daily mental rehearsals, he visualized his spine repairing itself. And believe it or not, it worked. Joe's journey teaches us that our minds are far more powerful than we give them credit for, especially when we're faced with setbacks. What I find fascinating is how these stories, spanning different eras and fields, have a common thread: the ability to use criticism and setbacks as fuel, not barriers. It's all about perspective. Critics might point out what's wrong, but if you flip that narrative, it can actually highlight areas for growth. In essence, criticism can be the best kind of feedback when we don't take it personally. So, what does this mean for us today? We're living in a world where feedback is constant and often brutal thanks to social media. It's easy to get discouraged, but think of criticism as a tool. It's like a sculptor's chisel. refining and shaping us into better versions of ourselves. The next time you're faced with criticism, try asking yourself, what can I learn from this? How can this feedback propel me forward rather than hold me back? Here's where it gets really interesting. Scientific research shows that the brain is capable of change through neuroplasticity. This means we can literally rewire our brains by embracing new challenges and learning from criticism. The great minds throughout history have used this to their advantage. So why not us? Look, it's not about ignoring criticism or pretending setbacks don't hurt. They do. But it's about reframing these experiences into something that serves our growth. We're all going to face setbacks. That's a given. But how we choose to perceive and respond to them can make all the difference. Whether you're aiming to start a business, improve your health, or attract more abundance into your life, embracing criticism as a tool for growth could be the game changer you've been looking for. So, let's make a pact the next time criticism comes knocking. Let's welcome it in, have a cup of coffee with it, and then ask it what it can teach us. Because in the end, every criticism is a hidden opportunity to become more of who we're meant to be. And isn't that what this journey is all about? So let's dive into this idea of consistent action, because honestly, it's like the unsung hero in the story of success. I want to take you back to a cold, cramped hospital ward in the mid-1800s. Picture a young woman named Florence Nightingale walking through rows of wounded soldiers, armed not with the weapons of war, but with a notebook and a vision. You see, Florence had this revolutionary idea that nursing could be so much more than what it was at the time. Despite facing stiff resistance from a society that didn't quite see her vision, she kept pressing on with one small improvement after another. And over time, those small changes led to a seismic shift in how we view healthcare today. Now let's switch gears to someone a bit more contemporary, someone who you might have seen battling aliens or saving the world on screen, Will Smith. This is a guy who had a vision and kept reaffirming it long before he had a blockbuster movie to his name. Picture him as a young rapper looking at himself in the mirror each morning and saying, "I am a great entertainer. I am successful." He planted these seeds daily, and what's fascinating is how those consistent affirmations built the foundation for his future success. Even before the rest of the world saw him that way, Will believed it and acted on it day after day. But here's where it gets interesting. Let's talk about the psychology behind all of this. Why do these small, consistent actions lead to such massive results? Well, think about it. Our brains love patterns. Every time you decide to take a small step in the direction of your goal, you're essentially training your brain to expect success. It's building this mental muscle memory that keeps you moving, even when things get tough. It's like Alexander the Great, who from a tender age was told stories of his destiny, groomed to see himself as a conqueror long before his first battle. That consistent mental training led him to believe he was unstoppable. And, well, history knows how that story goes. So what does all of this mean for you? Whether you're looking to get healthier, create wealth, or simply become better at something you love, start by identifying those small actions you can take consistently. It could be as simple as reading a page of a book daily, or as Mr. Smith did, standing in front of your mirror and affirming your greatness. You don't have to climb the entire mountain in one stride. Just take that first step consistently, and soon you'll find yourself scaling heights you never thought possible. And you know, this whole journey, whether it's Florence in those dimly lit hospital wards or Beyoncé creating Sasha Fierce to conquer stage fright, it's all about creating this momentum from consistency. Beyoncé didn't become a global icon overnight. No, she created Sasha Fierce to channel a strength that she wasn't always comfortable with. But through repeat performances and consistent practice, that alter ego became second nature. It's a testament to how we can redefine ourselves and build new realities through consistent action. Let me leave you with this thought. What small step can you take today that your future self will thank you for? Because here's the thing, every little bit adds up. And when you look back, you'll realize how far you've come. Not because of one giant leap, but through the power of small, consistent steps. Let me take you back to the 19th century. to a woman who truly redefined what it meant to build influence and relationships in her field. Florence Nightingale. Now here's a name that often invokes images of hospitals and revolutionized nursing care. But did you know that she did all this despite society basically slamming the doors on her at every turn? You see, back then, nursing wasn't even considered a respectable profession for a woman, let alone a career path. But Florence didn't let that stop her. Instead, she used her connections with powerful people to challenge the status quo and created monumental change in healthcare. Pretty wild, right? Now, let's fast forward to a modern-day example. Picture Tony Robbins in his early 20s. He was this broke, overweight guy living in a tiny apartment in Venice, California. It's hard to imagine, right? The Tony we know today is this towering figure of personal development. But back then, he was struggling. So what did he do? Tony started reinventing his beliefs about himself. He sought out mentors, studied under them, and built a network that supported his transformation. And it was through the relationships he cultivated that he learned to use his mind as a powerhouse for attracting wealth and creating the life he dreamed about. What do these stories tell us about influence and relationships? Here's where it gets interesting. Both Florence and Tony understood the power of surrounding themselves with the right people. You see, influence isn't just about what you know, it's about who you know and how well you know them. Florence used her network to implement changes in hospitals during the Crimean War, while Tony leveraged his connections to launch his speaking and coaching career. They didn't just have big dreams, they built the bridges to make those dreams tangible. And we can't talk about this topic without mentioning someone like Beyoncé. When she steps on stage, it's not just Beyoncé, it's Sasha Fierce. This alter ego she created allows her to channel confidence and fearlessness in her performances. Beyond her talent, what's remarkable is how she's built a team around her that elevates her brand and performance. Her influence extends beyond her music. She's impacting fashion, culture, and even politics through her relationships and partnerships. That's the power of intentionally building and nurturing those connections. So what's the psychology behind all this? Well, look, humans are naturally wired to connect. We crave relationships. But more than that, the right relationships can be your greatest asset because they provide insights, open doors, and sometimes even give you that push when you're too scared to jump. It's a supportive web that allows you to scale higher than you ever thought possible. Now let's bring this back to you. How can you apply these stories to your own life? Start by asking yourself, who are the people you spend the most time with? And how are they shaping your perceptions and beliefs? Are they challenging you to grow and pushing you to become the best version of yourself? I often say, show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. It's kind of like putting on a pair of glasses. You need the right lens to see the bright future that lies ahead of you. But here's the thing. Building influence isn't just about finding the most successful people to hang around with. It's about genuine relationships. It's about listening as much as you talk, offering help rather than always asking for it, and showing up consistently. Ask yourself how you can add value to others' lives, and you'll be amazed at how much your own life benefits in return. In the end, what we find is that strong networks and genuine relationships aren't just nice-to-haves, they're the bedrock of success. They can propel you further than any amount of talent or luck. So whether you're channeling your inner Florence Nightingale or crafting your own alter ego like Beyoncé, never underestimate the power of the connections you build. They're not just shaping your career, they're crafting your legacy. Let me take you back in time to the streets of Copenhagen, where a young philosopher named Søren Kierkegaard would spend his days walking. Now, I know what you're thinking. What does a 19th century philosopher have to do with today's creative thinking and innovation? Well, stay with me here. Kierkegaard didn't just walk to stretch his legs. He was refining his thoughts, crafting ideas that would later revolutionize existential philosophy. His work was all about introspective journeys, not just around the city, but within his own mind. This practice of deep reflection is a big part of unlocking creativity. It's this ability to step back, observe, and dive deep into one's thoughts. So ask yourself this: when was the last time you truly unplugged and let your mind wander? Now let's jump over to a very different time and place. Victorian England. Imagine Florence Nightingale in an era when women had limited roles, dreaming of something bigger. She was envisioning a whole new world of nursing at a time when hospitals were places people went to die, not heal. She fought against societal norms to redefine healthcare. Her innovative approach was not just about changing practices, but shifting the entire mindset. Think about that level of creativity, seeing what others couldn't even begin to imagine. It was her passion, her drive, and most importantly, her ability to visualize a different future that made all the difference. Fast forward to the modern era and you've got Beyoncé. But we're not talking about the polished superstar we see now. We're talking about Sasha Fierce, her alter ego. When Beyoncé felt her human insecurities creeping in, she embodied Sasha Fierce to perform with confidence and fearlessness. This is a modern take on leveraging creativity to overcome personal limits. It's about creating a mental framework that allows you to act beyond your everyday self. Do you think that creativity can unlock aspects of you that you've yet to discover? Absolutely. Moving on to one of my favorites, the enigmatic Nikola Tesla. Here's a guy who could visualize complex electrical machines in his mind long before they ever existed on paper. He didn't need blueprints. His mind was the prototype. That's the power of creative visualization. Tesla's innovations in electricity and technology were so ahead of his time that even today some of his ideas boggle the mind. This ability to mentally construct and deconstruct ideas is a hallmark of true innovation. It's creative thinking at its peak. But here's the thing that's important for us today. These stories show us that creative thinking isn't just about the arts or inventing something new. It's about approaching problems in new ways and recognizing opportunities others might miss. Whether you're writing a business strategy, planning a family vacation, or deciding on your next career move, innovative thinking can be a game changer. It's about training your mind to see possibilities where others see obstacles. So how does this apply to you in the here and now? It might be as simple as taking a walk without your phone, allowing your thoughts to wander like Kierkegaard. Or perhaps you'll choose to reimagine your professional role, much like Nightingale did with nursing. Do you need an alter ego to face your fears? Maybe it's time to create one, like Beyoncé. Or perhaps you'll start sketching your ideas mentally, a la Tesla, before diving into them. Start small, but dream big. Ultimately, the lesson here is that creativity and innovation are deeply personal journeys. They require us to challenge the status quo and to venture beyond the familiar. So I challenge you to reflect on your own life. Where can you introduce this kind of creative thinking? What avenues are you yet to explore? Train your mind to think in new directions. And you might just find yourself not only solving problems, but reshaping your destiny. That, I believe, is the essence of attracting true wealth, health, and power in our lives. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine it's the early 1800s. The world is a different place, and a woman named Harriet Tubman is navigating the treacherous landscape of the American South. She wasn't just another face in the crowd. No, Harriet was a beacon of hope, leading enslaved people to freedom through the Underground Railroad. But here's the thing, Harriet wasn't relying on guesswork. This was a woman who took calculated risks, guided by her unwavering faith in her visions and inner voice. Harriet had this innate ability to trust her instincts, even when the stakes were sky high. Just imagine, each journey north was fraught with danger, yet she made it happen time and time again. She wasn't just escaping, she was reshaping destinies. Now fast forward to a more modern landscape, and let's talk about someone like Tony Robbins. You know him, right? The motivational powerhouse who's known for helping others break free from their limitations. But early in his life, Tony was broke and overweight, a far cry from the image we see today. What turned it around for him was his approach to risk, intelligent, calculated risks. He didn't just leap blindly. Instead, Tony rewrote his own narrative. He examined the beliefs that were holding him back, flipped them on their heads, and took massive action. He studied the greats, drew from their methods, and took steps, methodical yet bold, to evolve into the Tony Robbins the world knows now. So how do these stories connect, you might be asking? Well, both Harriet and Tony show us that success isn't just about luck or circumstances. It's about making informed choices, taking risks where others might hesitate. Harriet's reliance on her inner visions and Tony's reinvention of his limiting beliefs highlight a fantastic principle, the power of mental clarity and risk-taking. They each had clarity on what they needed to do and took action based on that clarity, even when the path was anything but clear. Whether it's escaping literal chains or breaking through metaphorical ones, the principles are eerily similar. But let's turn to psychology for a moment. What makes taking calculated risks a crucial part of achieving wealth, health, and power? It boils down to the brain's incredible ability to process risks and rewards. When you take a risk, something fascinating happens in your brain. Your mind starts to weigh potential outcomes, compares them against your goals, and if aligned, pushes you towards action. And when you succeed, even if it's just a small win, it reinforces positive behavior and increases your comfort with future risks. It's like building muscle. Each calculated risk you take strengthens your ability to take bigger leaps next time. Now, how does all of this translate into something actionable for you today? Well, start by identifying an area in your life where you feel stuck. Is it your career, your health, maybe a personal project? Once you have that clarity, think about the risks you've been avoiding. Could it be asking for a raise, pivoting professions, or maybe starting that side hustle you've been dreaming about? Begin small, assess the situation, gather your facts, and then make a calculated move, just like Harriet did with her escapes or Tony with his transformation. And to drive this home, consider this. Every successful person you admire has taken a calculated risk to get to where they are. Kobe Bryant, for instance, didn't just shoot hoops. He visualized every shot, considered every angle, and took the right risks on the court. It's not just about taking any risk, it's about taking the right ones. That's the art of it. So the next time you face a daunting prospect, remember these stories, remember the principles behind them, and think about how you can apply them to your own life. What calculated risk are you willing to take today to unlock the wealth, health, and power you deserve? Let me take you back to the late 1990s when a relatively unknown actor named Jim Carrey sat at the top of a hill overlooking Los Angeles. Now, Jim wasn't just admiring the view, he had a very particular ritual. Each day, as he gazed out over the sprawling city, he'd pull out a check he'd written to himself for $10 million for acting services rendered. This was way before the world knew him as the star of The Mask or Dumb and Dumber. At the time, the idea seemed almost comical, but writing that check was Jim's way of sending a powerful signal to the universe, and perhaps more importantly, to himself. You see, Carrey wasn't just dreaming, he was visualizing with intent, training his mind to believe in a future that seemed out of reach. By focusing on that check, he forced himself to act daily in ways that aligned with his vision. And sure enough, years later, Jim was not just cashing checks of that size, but often far exceeding them. This isn't just a Hollywood fairy tale. It's a prime example of mastering the inner world to bring about external results. Let's jump back to the 17th century and talk about someone who also saw beyond the obvious, Galileo Galilei. He didn't have checks or Hollywood hills, but he had something arguably even more potent, an unyielding belief in the power of observation and evidence. Galileo lived in a time when the Catholic Church held firm the belief that the earth was the center of the universe. But by gazing through his telescope, Galileo saw moons orbiting Jupiter, challenging the very core of accepted cosmology. By trusting his mind's potential to override societal dogma, Galileo paved the way for modern science. But here's the thing, it wasn't just the telescope that did the magic, it was his willingness to believe in what he observed and the courage to stand by it. It's such a beautiful demonstration of how nurturing an inner sense of truth can lead to transformative breakthroughs. Now, imagine walking through the cobblestone streets of Copenhagen in the 19th century with Søren Kierkegaard. This philosopher didn't just walk, he pondered deeply. While strolling, he'd let his mind wander, allowing thoughts to coalesce into powerful ideas that would eventually shape existential philosophy. Kierkegaard understood that clarity and focus weren't found lounging in comfortable chairs, but through active engagement with the world and oneself. What all these stories share is a common thread: the ability to cultivate a focused inner world despite external chaos or disbelief. It's about training your mental processes to align with your goals, even if those goals seem audacious. Jim Carrey visualized success, Galileo trusted his observations, and Kierkegaard reflected deeply. Each of them, in their own way, found clarity by turning inward before acting outward. So how does this translate to today? Consider the noise we face. Endless streams of notifications, relentless news cycles, the ever-present buzz of social media. Achieving mental clarity requires deliberate practice, just like a muscle that needs to be strengthened through consistent exercise. Techniques like meditation, visualization, or even simple daily reflection can be the tools we use to calm the chaos. Think about it. What if, like Carrey, you wrote yourself a check? Not a literal one necessarily, but a commitment to something you're aiming for, and then spend time visualizing it each day. Or like Galileo, dare to trust your own observations and insights, even when they defy popular opinion. Or carve out time like Kierkegaard to let your mind wander, allowing innovative ideas to emerge naturally. The path to mastering your inner world isn't a one-size-fits-all, but the principles are universal. It's about finding what works for you and sticking with it. Just imagine the potential that's waiting to be unlocked when you start focusing inward. What you might discover could not only change your life, but possibly ripple outwards, impacting many more beyond you. Isn't it worth exploring? Let me tell you a story about a young woman named Stephanie, who against all odds had a vision so clear it was almost like she had already lived it. Now you might know her better as Lady Gaga, but before the fame, the sold-out tours, and the Grammys, she was just a girl in New York, carrying around a sense of destiny that didn't quite fit with her reality at the time. She would jog every morning, declaring to herself, "Music is my life. I will be successful in my music career." It was more than just words. It was a vivid picture in her mind that she constantly revisited. Why? Because she understood that to change the world outside, she had to change her world inside first. Now, isn't that something? This idea of seeing it before it becomes real, it's not just a modern pop star's trick. Let's jump back in time to a philosopher who walked the earth around 500 BC, Pythagoras. Yes, the triangles guy, but he was much more than his famous theorem. Pythagoras used visualization and rituals to align his thoughts with what he called universal harmony. He believed that seeing the order in numbers in the cosmos could translate into a kind of inner harmony. By visualizing this alignment with the universe, Pythagoras and his followers built a foundation of philosophy and science that still resonates today. There's a psychology to visualization that's both profound and surprisingly logical. When you constantly picture a scenario, your brain starts to treat it as familiar. It's like rehearsing for a role so thoroughly you become the character. Jim Carrey, the comedian and actor we all know and love, once wrote himself a check for $10 million for acting services rendered. At that time, he was just another struggling actor in Hollywood. But he didn't just imagine receiving that check, he lived as if it was already part of his reality. He'd drive past the Hollywood Hills, see those big letters, and start to feel that success was just a matter of time. And guess what? By the time he got the lead role in Dumb and Dumber, that check wasn't just a piece of paper, it was his payday. But here's the thing that brings all these stories together. Visualization works because it aligns our subconscious mind with our conscious desires. It's not magic, it's psychology. Our brains are hardwired to follow the paths we lay out for them. When we visualize success, we're essentially carving new neural pathways that guide our actions, attitudes, and decisions. It's like a mental dress rehearsal that readies us for the real deal. Galileo, for instance, envisioned a universe that aligned with what he saw through his telescope, despite what the world believed at the time. This vision gave him the courage to defy dogma and trust in his observations. Now think about this. How many times have you talked yourself out of something because you couldn't see past a current obstacle? We all do it, but what if instead you envisioned yourself overcoming that hurdle? Picture it right now. You're standing on the other side, looking back, proud of what you've accomplished. That mental image is powerful. It's like planting a seed in your mind that slowly grows and pushes you to take the steps needed to get there. In today's fast-paced world, where distractions are plenty and attention spans are short, the practice of visualization might seem like a luxury. But imagine if you took just a few minutes each day to paint a vivid picture of your goals. You see, by visualizing your desired outcome, you're not just building castles in the air, you're laying the foundation in your mind for what you believe is attainable, and isn't that worth a try? Because as history has shown us, those who dare to visualize often find themselves living the reality they once only dreamed of. So what's holding you back? Take a leaf out of these incredible stories. Start small, perhaps a daily walk where you vividly imagine the life you want. Picture the details, the sights, the sounds, the feelings. Let it become part of your routine. Who knows what doors you might open just by allowing yourself to truly see them? After all, isn't the life you're dreaming of just waiting for you to step into it? So let me take you on a little journey that brings everything together. Picture this. It's a chilly evening in the mid-19th century, and Harriet Tubman is leading a group of slaves towards freedom. The dark night surrounds them, and the dense forest stretches endlessly. It might seem like an impossible task, yet Harriet has this uncanny ability to navigate through what seems utterly daunting. How did she do it, you ask? Well, she had this profound trust in her inner visions and divine signs. She was deeply grateful for every piece of guidance she received, and this gratitude fueled her courage and determination. It's mind-blowing to think about, isn't it? The gratitude for what she believed to be heavenly guidance gave her the power to keep going, transforming her life and the lives of hundreds around her. Now fast forward to the modern age. Here's what's fascinating. Tom Bilyeu, the co-founder of Quest Nutrition, embodies a similar principle. Tom wasn't just about business. He was about understanding the human mind. He obsessed over mindset and neuroplasticity. You know, the whole idea that you can reshape how you think. But here's the thing. He attributes a significant portion of his success to gratitude. By appreciating each challenge and each triumph, he created a mindset that drew success towards him like a magnet. It's pretty wild how powerful gratitude can be, almost like a secret sauce, if you will. And speaking of mindset, Søren Kierkegaard comes to mind. Imagine this, a 19th century philosopher walking through the streets of Copenhagen, diving deep into his thoughts. Kierkegaard would reflect on life and write passionately. What powered his philosophical inquiries, though, was his gratitude for the simple act of thinking and exploring. I mean, think about it. Gratitude allowed him to find joy and fulfillment in what many of us would consider everyday musings. So what ties Tubman, Bilyeu, and Kierkegaard together? It's the transformative power of gratitude. It's this realization that gratitude isn't just about saying a polite thank you. It's about genuinely feeling it in your core for every lesson, every opportunity, and every setback. This deep-seated thankfulness shifts how you approach life's challenges. Psychologically speaking, it rewires your brain, encouraging resilience, optimism, and ultimately success. But let's bring it home a bit, shall we? Today, we're constantly bombarded with reasons to be stressed or dissatisfied. Yet here's an idea. What if we stop and consciously train our minds to lean into gratitude? Think about Matthew McConaughey, who famously journaled his visions and gratitude before shifting his career. He wasn't just writing down dreams, he was grounding himself in gratitude for what was and what could be. It's about creating a mental space that acknowledges the present moment's value and potential, basically setting the stage for future success. Now, I can hear you thinking, all right, but how does this apply to me? Well, here's a little challenge for you. Start a gratitude practice. It's simple, really. Every day, take a moment to reflect on 3 things you're grateful for. It could be the coffee you're sipping right now, the support of a friend, or simply the fact that you woke up this morning. It's about seeing and appreciating those things we often overlook. By doing this, you're training your mind to focus on abundance rather than scarcity. Imagine waking up every day with a mindset that naturally attracts wealth, health, and power. It's not just about material gains, but about cultivating an environment where success is inevitable. The more you practice, the more you'll start to see shifts in your life. You'll notice opportunities you might have missed before. You'll respond to challenges with resilience and creativity. It's nothing short of transformational. So next time you're faced with a fork in the road, remember Harriet, Tom, Søren, and Matthew. They've shown us that gratitude isn't just a feel-good exercise, it's a tool for profound change. And who knows, by embracing it, you might just find yourself stepping into the life you've always dreamed of. After all, isn't that what we're really after? To live fully with intention and purpose, drawing the best of what life has to offer towards us.